Coley, I believe it was the same convention that he spoke. And of course, he's since passed, but I remember just having a conversation with him at the convention. He would be greatly missed, just in terms of his activism and his commitment to LGBT issues in South Africa. I just thought that he was just a great man.
I'd have to say I've missed a couple since 1990. I would have to go back to Fort Lauderdale when James Earl Hardy came to speak to the group.
Yeah.
That's along the lines of the Josephine story. I remember he sat there, and of course, his B-Boy Blues books were, his first or second one was out. And I remember him standing in front of the group saying he made no apologies for his feelings about white people in his books. I mean, there was nothing nice said about white people in his books. And, it was obvious his feelings. And then to read the emails that he put out after that convention, I thought were tacky. Because he says, well, I went down there and I told these folks how I felt, and if they asked me again, I wouldn't do it. And I'm like, what purpose did that serve? And that was an after-the-fact email, too. And I thought, well, okay, that's fine. That's his personal opinion, but I just thought it was kind of tacky on his part. But, it's his book. He can write what he wants. Each convention, though, for me, has had its own flavor. New Orleans was great. I enjoyed New Orleans. That was a lot of fun. It was when Preston and I were bouncing back and forth whether we're going to get back on the board or not in 2001.
Yeah.
I do have fond memories of each convention that I've been to, but I would have to say my most memorable one was the first one I went to in San Francisco. I mean, that's when I got initiated to the NA, and I remember riding back on the airplane back to Kansas City, and I wrote a whole bunch of things down and put it in the next newsletter for the chapter to do, because I learned a lot out there, just interacting with the other chapter members out there from all around the country. I got a lot of good suggestions and ideas, and so I brought those back to Kansas City, and we tried to implement a lot of those. And some other strategies, and plus the HIV education. We had done nothing about HIV education up to that point, and that's when we learned about. I'm not sure if the National Task Force on AIDS Prevention got started by then, but probably a year or two or three after that, we brought what's his name in, dealt with that.
Reggie.
Not Reggie, the other one. No.
Is he feedback?
Huh?
Feedback?
No. He's out there in L.A. I can't remember his name, or San Francisco.
Oh, Gavin.
Gavin, thank you. Gavin came out to Kansas City and did his safe-sex workshop. And at the time, that's when those safe-sex workshops reached all the way to Congress. And they were talking about the condom races and the dildo, or whatever they were, and that made national news. And I thought, oh my God, here we are having one of these safe-sex workshops, and you're watching the news, and you see people like Jesse Helm ranting and raving about our safe-sex workshop, that they should cut the funding for all that because they thought that was so inappropriate. So that was another memorable moment.
Well, did you ever... I'm sorry.
I was going to add another memorable convention for me was Key West. It was the most breathtaking convention. It was our Crystal celebration. It was just wonderful. We had never gone to a locale like Key West before, and that was probably the best convention I've ever been to. It was just ran so well. I believe Michael Harrington was one of the co-chairs of it, and it was everything was just perfect. The setting, the meals, the atmosphere, the brotherhood, everything just worked very well. It was the most fun I've ever had at a convention, and just the brotherhood was unbelievable. It was just a great convention.
I was going to ask you, going back to your last answer, Doug, if you had participated in one of the condom races, and if you could describe what it was like.
I can't remember all of the details.
I remember there was one once in my living room, and all the windows were open, and I thought I would probably be expelled from the neighborhood.
Oh my God.
Well, I lived on the 4th floor of an apartment building not too far from the plaza here. There was probably about maybe 5, 6, or 7 of us in the apartment. I remember watching Gavin do some very interesting things with condoms and dildos. I've never seen somebody, well, I won't get into all that details, but there were some very interesting things that went on, and but it was all for a purpose, and I think that got lost on the people in Washington why we were doing those, which was really sad because it did teach us, some things that we needed to know. And at the time, we were just getting off a president that couldn't even speak the name, and I really appreciated him coming out and actually going around the country and doing those workshops.
Now, while we're talking about conventions, we know that you, Preston, have become sort of an NA icon, a.k.a. Bernadine.
Oh, God!
Can you tell us a little bit about how she was born, when she first appeared? What's the story behind that?
The Bernadine Chambers story.
This is your life, Bernadine.
Oh, my God. Actually, what happened was it started on a dare. Yeah, somebody dared me to do drag because they said I had one of these masculine faces and that I would never be able to pull it off well and all of this stuff. And then I further understood that it was about, it was a fundraiser. So, it was a fundraiser for the NA. I stand on my head if it's going to, go ahead and get some, some further funding for the NA. So I said, what the hell, why not? So I believe it was in '95 that I did the first performance, and it came off as well. And the name, actually, Bernadine, is from a character from Waiting to Exhale. And she was just very fiery and very strong in her convictions in terms of, this is who I am, and don't fuck with me, and that sort of thing. And Chambers is Echo Chambers' name, and so Echo Chambers is DA's partner, and since she was my surrogate aunt, I just kind of took her last name. So she took me on her wing, and that's what that happened.
And does all your makeup.
Hey, yeah, does all the makeup, and I'll do a drop of makeup. So, yeah.
I guess we should have had you appear in both.
No, that's Thursday.
That's
One night only. One night only, but
So we'll have to have this tape here for Thursday.
exactly.
But, before we leave Bernadine, Bernadine sort of gives the impression as a sort of a picture of perfection, So it seems as though that's a real important element of when Bernadine comes out.
Actually, on a serious note, black women have really been an important part of my life, and I just really don't want to mock black women. So that's why I really take a lot of pride and work when actually I come on and do Bernadine. I mean, in all seriousness, I just really am very careful not to cross the line between fun and mockery and just cruel, just being a caricature of a black woman. My mother would roll over in her grave. I could never do that. And just, even as a joke, I just think this is too serious. And so when I go on and I actually try to do something, when they do something sexy, but it won't be lewd. And I'm just there's a difference between being sexy and being too lewd and too distasteful. So I'm just very careful when that actually happens, that it's something tasteful as well as hopefully entertaining, but never lewd.
And there have always been issues within the gay community, I guess outside the gay community also, associated with with cross-dressing, entertainment, female impersonation. How have you perceived that the group has received this or responded to this? I know there's been some instances in the group where you know, you folks had to defend
I'm
your
glad.
positions on
I'm
that.
glad you asked me that question. I don't see anything wrong with it. As everybody knows, I'm very comfortable with my male gender. I'm comfortable with the female gender. But when I perform as Bernadine, I'm an actor first, you know, and I have no problem with doing whatever I have to convey a particular character. Bernadine is a character, you know, is a stage persona. And I just think in the community we have got to embrace both sides of the community. Transgender people are in the community. Drag queens, female impersonators are in the community. Leather men are in the community, and we have to, lesbians are in the community, and we have to embrace that. I just think that the organization has been a great opportunity, you know, it's been a great opportunity to embrace all of these different things in our community. And actually, I'm very comfortable with female impersonators going to see the shows, performing, but I think the organization was just a great part of really embracing my comfort level in terms of looking at other sectors of our community. And I just wish the greater community can really become more accepting of different sectors within the LGBT community. So I just, I know within myself, I probably was a little shaky in the beginning in terms of why people dressed up, but after understanding that for certain individuals it's about entertainment purposes, certain individuals, you know, is transgender. I think it's all about growing as a person and really becoming more knowledgeable about what's going on with individuals within our community.
We'd only have half a talent show if we did.
That's too.
Well, let me ask you both about how you got involved in the NA at the leadership level. You've both been on the board multiple times. How did that come about? What did you do? When was it? What was your experience like? Either one?
Well, mine was at the Dallas convention, and actually I think you came up and asked me to just run. I think that was one of the first times I'd really had a conversation with you. I think you came to me in Dallas after one of the meetings that we had and asked me to consider running for the board. And I talked to some of my friends about it, and I thought, well, okay, why not? And this was right before the incident in Dallas where the drag queen got up there and pretty much made fun of almost every race, and all through her performance she kept asking, all right, is anybody insulted, anybody upset? And nobody said a word. And by the time she ended this, there were people saying, oh no, this is all wrong, this is all wrong. She shouldn't have done that. And by then it was too late, because she had stopped her performance like twice and asked the audience, that was mainly MAC, or the national people that were there at this club, watching her do this performance. She stopped it twice to ask. Nobody spoke up. Well, the next day, it was just all the talk. There were people wanting to write letters. There were people criticizing the Dallas chapter for inviting this lady. And it crept right on into the candidates forum. And all the candidates got up there and said, well, you know, oh, we're not going to do this. We shouldn't have done that. And I think I was about the only one that said, you know what, I enjoyed it. I said, if we can't sit back and, you know, poke fun of ourselves and laugh at ourselves once in a while, then we're taking ourselves way too seriously. Well, some people liked that response, some didn't. I got elected anyway. So that was my first time being on the board. But I think, Doug, you were the one that asked me to run.
I'm glad I did.
And
So what? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And for me, in I believe it was 94, 95, I was coming out of completing the co-chairship in Chicago, and I thought it was a natural progression to go to the national board. I really wanted to see how I could further develop as a leader, as a board member, as a person. The organization as a whole has been a great ground for me to just gain business skills and you know, organizational skills, leadership skills, able to critique and offer argument and develop, speaking skills. I really think those particular issues and skills that you gain in board meetings are priceless. And many individuals in their business role sometimes do not get that opportunity to really gain leadership experience. And the organization has always been a great ground for developing and strengthening leadership. So that was one of the reasons that I wanted to join. I wanted to gain further understanding and further skills from the board.
Well, what have your experiences been on the board in your various roles? What type of things have you done on the board? How's that been like?
One first thing I did when I got on the board was I co-chaired the HIV/AIDS prevention committee with Paul Cloutier, and that was a wonderful experience. We believed in having articles about HIV prevention in each of the queues, as well as making sure there was the HIV prevention segment at the national convention, making sure that the hospitality suite for people who are inflicted with HIV/AIDS was available, making sure that that room is stocked with goodies such as water and other food essentials that individuals who are impacted wouldn't have to ask for, that sort of thing. And again, that was just out of the crisis that had happened within the organization, losing so many brothers to HIV/AIDS. So it was just very important to us to make sure that we take care of our brothers, make sure that they really wouldn't have to ask for something, that their needs, if we could have it, could be cared for, at least while they were here for that particular week, that they could really just rest easy, take comfort in knowing that your brother would take care of you while you were here. So that was just very important to us.
The first time I was on the board, I was with Paul Sears on the chapter development. And Paul and I were traveling to St. Louis a lot, trying to help their chapter get together. And of course, it's just down the street from me on I-70. So I traveled to St. Louis probably 3 or 4 times, helping them get their chapter off the ground. Also, I helped get the national T-shirt together, ready for the March on Washington, which was a chore. We made it a contest, and it was fun trying to get, I don't know, like 200 or 300 T-shirts to Washington in time for the march. But and they're lovely, Les. Those are lovely T-shirts.
I think so.
I was going to say,
Could you tell us who? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. One of the first things I did when I was first on the board, the first time as a director, is I made sure that I believe I was representative for PACT Cincinnati, PACT St. Louis, as well as MNCT Milwaukee. And I made sure I visit those cities within the first month of being on the board. And one of the things that really struck me is I believe PACT Cincinnati was just getting off the ground, and Victor Fabro I took him under my wing in terms of making sure that he came to the national convention, and he did. And and I'm just so thrilled to report that he's now the co-chair of the Midland Regional. Just like Les did that for me, I did that for Victor, and it's just great brotherhood within this organization that happens all the time. We're not the only ones that did that. I mean, that happens all the time in the organization, that we would encourage and give people energy and support to really step up to the plate to leadership positions, and just trusting that they could do it. And if you get into a jam, call us. We won't let you fall. So that was really...
You're talking about the traditional role of directors as being liaison from the board to various chapters, usually in their area, but sometimes not.
Exactly.
Right. And that's always been a board function.
Exactly. It was just, I really think that's an important function in terms of, putting a face to the NA board, just making sure that, the members, the local chapters know that the board, really want to hear your concerns, really wants you to be a part of the organization, with the national organization, and how can we best assist the local chapters thrive? You know, that's an important part of the liaison.
Keep the lines of communication open. That's always been a problem. They're criticized. The NA always gets criticized for not communicating.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons we have the liaisons, to try to communicate between the chapters.
Exactly.
I want to go back to the logo for a minute. Who won the contest, and what was this logo that seems to have aroused the controversy between you and Les here?
Oh, no. No, the national T-shirt was designed back in, when was March? 93, 94, something like that? Okay, we had a contest, and one of our local members here in Kansas City won that, Steve Sadler.
Sort of an inside job.
Yeah, no, it was voted on. We kept it legit. But at yesterday's board meeting, Les made a comment about that ugly national T-shirt. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm the one that, helped get that T-shirt.
Well, I liked it at the moment.
No.
Our
It
taste
does
has
need to be
changed over the
updated
years.
though, because we do have a new national logo, and I agree that we do need to update the national T-shirt. That's at the directors, or not the directors, but the general membership decides they want a new T-shirt. We do need a new T-shirt. My gosh, we haven't had a national T-shirt in quite a while.
Didn't Bob Williams have a lot to do with that other T-shirt? Was he co-chair at the time? I remember.
Yeah, Bob was the national co-chair at that time that we did it, because I remember we were sitting in a board meeting in Chicago when we decided to get the national T-shirt going. So that's when I opened. That was my big step in the national.
Well, Preston, let me ask you, now after you served on the board that first time, you then became recording secretary, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And what was that like?
Labor intensive. It was very labor intensive. In my opinion, that's probably one of the most challenging jobs on the board. I remember at that particular time I became very outspoken. Slow down, I need to get everything, because I was taking board notes without a recorder. I really thought it was, I know people thought I was crazy, but it was really important to me to capture the moment, to really, because in my opinion, part of the secretary's job is to capture the essence of what's going on and interpret it on paper, and I really fought very hard to make sure not only that I did that, but to make sure that the minutes were out in a timely fashion. So usually after the board meeting was over, I would go home and work on those minutes within the first week and try to get them out. There may have been mistakes in the minutes, but they were out. And because I really think that the minutes were, it was just such an important part of the sessions that people needed to be reminded what was discussed, what the motions were, the business. It was the lifeline of the business meeting.
Well, we're all sorry you didn't continue in that.
Well, thank you. But it's a very challenging role, and I would say it's one, although the secretaries are probably given a lot of grief, I do believe it's one of the most important functions of the board, of the officers, is that you have to have a really good recording secretary.
Well, so now you were both re-elected to the board in 2001, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
New Orleans.
And what about that? How did that happen? What have you done since then?
Well, actually, I remember with me, because we were talking about running for other positions, or we had been approached to run for another position.
Like co-chair?
And yeah, actually it was co-chairship. And we sat down and we actually went for a walk on the pier, and we really talked about it in depth. And it was one of those things that we didn't take lightly. We looked at different things that were going on in our lives at the time. I know I was thinking about a doctorate, and at that particular time I think I had made the decision to go back to school to become a doctor. And actually, that had the fact that I'm even in a doctoral program has a lot to do with this organization, because there's so many PhDs in the organization. And I think that's a rarity as well, is that, throughout my life, the organization has been there for every part of my professional and personal development almost, you know, and so it was just wonderful that here we are. Should we run for co-chairs? Or should I come become a doctor? And Doug was very supportive and said, you know what, you need to do this. You know, we could still serve on the board in another capacity, but maybe we should wait to become co-chairs. And I like the fact that we knew that that job was so important that we could not enter that job on a whim. It has to be planning. We have to make sure that, you know, it's just so many things have to be in place, because you are the leaders of the organization, and that's just.
I was very taken back that we were even asked to run for co-chairs. You know, I mean, that you had to step back and think, my God, you know, they thought enough about us to ask us to run for national co-chairs. I mean, Preston, you know, everybody sees that Preston and I get along just fine at these conventions. We spend a lot of time together, but of course we live in separate cities, so we don't get to spend a lot of time together unless we're at these conventions. I guess people watched that and, you know, decided, you know, I was very honored that they asked us to run as the national co-chairs. And we did. We had to give it a lot of consideration, a lot of thought. And it was not made in one day. In fact, we had bounced back and forth. Well, should we? One day it was yes, one day it was no.
There were plenty of rumors.
So, yeah.
So was the one person who asked you, was it a group of folk? Or
It was several people.
Several people. And these were separate people that came up and asked us.
Including a trustee, Alonzo Wade.
Mm-hmm.
We sat down and talked to him in depth about this. And I'm just really proud that we were, while individuals thought we were ready to do this, we felt that at this particular time it was not right yet. You know.
Yeah, there may still be some time down the road.
Emphasizing yet.
Yeah.
Because I've learned never to say never. I will never say never. But I do believe that the best days of this organization is in front of us. And, you know, and just because we are going off the board doesn't mean that we're disappearing. I still think there are so many other capacities that we can serve in. You know, that's the great thing about this organization is that we can be the cheerleaders now in terms of trying to cultivate other leadership to come on the board to, you know, to step up and really take those roles seriously. So it's not like we're going anywhere.
No, we're not going anywhere.
What is it that makes you say what you just said, that you think that our best days are still ahead of us? Because in a lot of ways it seems as though the atmosphere is sort of, the general atmosphere sort of embraces just the opposite point of view.
I think, I forgot the quote in terms of, I think that's when character is really born, is that, you know, when you go through trying times and everybody, hardships have happened to everybody, you know, whether you're rich or poor, whether you're organization or whatever. And I think that's how character is made, you know, how do you get through those trying times? All organizations go through it. You know, no one's exempt, and I just think the climate of the country in general is difficult. I would put it that way. And the economy is difficult. But I do believe that, you know, given the strength and the resilience of this organization, that we will pull through, we will come up with innovative ideas, we will come up with a way to bounce back. We always have. And I'm very strong in my faith in this organization, and I know that that will happen.
And I've with my own chapter, I've seen us come and go, and of course we're gone now.
We'll come back.
Yeah. Well, actually, I've had quite a bit of interest within the last couple of months about bringing the local chapter back, and I'll pursue that once this convention is over. But even at the Midland level, I've seen the Midland level rise and fall, and I've seen the national rise and fall. I think, you know, we're on a downside right now, but you know, like Preston, I have faith that we're going to rise up again and even do better. This organization has just impressed me with so many individuals, so many personalities, and even the ones that don't have the degrees behind their name, I've still been impressed with those people that step up to the role and fill in those gaps that need to be filled in. It seems like there's always somebody there to step in when we need something. And that impresses me about the members of this organization. And that's from the national right down to the local chapter.
Well, you just answered what was going to be the last question in the interview, but we have a few others in between.
Sure.
So let's go back. I want to go back. Since you decided not to run for co-chairs 2 years ago, you did run for the board. You were elected. And what have you been doing since then?
We have been doing the awards committee.
Oh.
Something occurred a couple of years ago in which the awards chairman resigned, and we didn't have awards for a particular year, and I was pissed. I was really upset about that because we are a volunteer organization, and we both feel that awards are such a vital part of that, and I really think it's important to give people a pat on the back for a job well done, and we really thought it was important to put some reverence in these awards. Everything we've done with the awards for the past 2 years have been carefully thought out. Even from the design of the certificates, it's just something we really take very seriously. We had a timeline in place within the first couple of weeks. We made sure we communicated with our committee. It wasn't just us. We are chairmen. We are not the committee. We kept detailed records of what the committee thought who should get particular awards. It's a very time-intensive job, but it was one that we did willingly. It's one that we certainly enjoyed.
We looked at each other at when they were dividing up the work, the committees on the board. We looked at each other and we thought, well, we have to pick up this and carry on the tradition that that you set yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember years going to conventions watching you do all the awards. I thought, well, we've got to carry on the tradition.
And Don Moses.
And Don.
Moses.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's just I think it was Paul Cloutier was like, it's one of those jobs that you do without getting an award. It's not
That's right.
about getting an award yourself. It's about really making sure that worthy individuals gain a pat on the back, and it's just been a wonderful job to have because it's all about giving back to somebody else.
So now you're going to train the next co-chairs of
Yes.
the awards committee.
Sure.
Whoever they are.
Whoever they are.
We'll give them our cell phone numbers.
We'll pass along the tradition.
Yeah.
You did return the awards manual to me yesterday, which is
Right.
more than any of your predecessors have done.
Right.
So at least
we
we
have
will be
to
able
keep.
to pass it on.
I have to keep ours,
Well,
mine,
that's
because
fine.
we've got to
It
read
should
off
keep
of
one.
it.
In addition, I've sent the copy to Paul Hawkins, and there's all the awards manual and materials are stored in the national office as well. So it's just consistency is just really important, so individuals can find the instruction of how to make sure.
Who won the award.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's one of my projects I've been working on, getting all of the awards from the beginning of the organization up to this point, because there are gaps.
There are.
And I'm trying to compile all that information. Ollie Taylor has been very instrumental in sending a lot of information to me. I've got about 10 convention booklets at home that contain some information. The chapter development manual even has information in it about previous awards. So I'm trying to put all this together. It's still going to take some time to get that done, but I'm trying to go from year to year because over the years we've added awards. We didn't always have 10 to 12 awards. So I'm still trying to compile that.
Speaking of things that you've done on the board since you were last elected, one of those things definitely has to be while we are here now. July 2003, you brought Convention 2003
Right.
to Kansas City for
Yeah.
the first time, right?
Yeah,
What has all
Bob.
that been like?
Okay. Oh God. That's always been one of my dreams ever since going to some of these conventions. Is wow, would these folks really come to Kansas City? We're not a big metropolitan like, New York and San Francisco, but I thought, damn it, yes, we're just as good as the rest of them. We may not be as big, population-wise, but, there's still some things in Kansas City I think that a lot of the chapter members or the national members would enjoy about Kansas City. Bob, now my own chapter, after we did a couple of regionals, I tried to convince our chapter, when we had a chapter here in Kansas City, to bring a national to Kansas City. And I was constantly voted down. I mean, we voted on this like 2 or 3 times over the past 5 or 6 years before we, quit as a chapter. And I got voted down every time. And now that I don't have a chapter here, we're having a national here this week. Bob,
There was no one to vote you down.
right, there was no one to vote me down. Bob approached me about this, I believe, not in San Francisco, and said, what would you think about bringing the national to Kansas City? So he did some research over the year between San Francisco and where were we 2 years ago? New Orleans. So we did some research. We put a presentation together, and I can't remember if anyone else had put a presentation together or not. I can't remember. But anyway, in New Orleans, we ended up doing it. So yes, the last 2 years I've been busy, especially the last 2 months. I've been busy putting together the national. But I've worked on that as well as working with Preston on the awards committee. That has been a real time consuming, but it's been an absolute labor of love. I've enjoyed every moment, all the money I've spent. I've absolutely loved it. And it's been worth every penny to me, and it's only going to get better because we just started this week. It's, Tuesday, and we've got the rest of the week to go. I'm very much looking forward to the majority of the people getting here, and I'm really interested toward the end of the convention to find out the people that have never been to Kansas City in this part of the country, the Midwest, because a lot of people on the East and West Coast pass right over the Midwest and not give it a second thought, and I'm interested to see their reaction and their thoughts to a city in the Midwest.
Well, I have one more question. I definitely don't want the interview to end on a down note, so Doug, you must think of something uplifting to ask.
Oh, we have a lot of questions left to ask.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah,
All right.
Oh, I thought you
We're
were
going to need a second tape here.
Wow.
I thought
Okay,
you were
well-
saying. I thought you were saying that the
No, I said
interview
we
was
have
almost over.
We jumped right to the last question.
Oh,
now we're
okay.
going back.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
No, we're not over.
Well, go ahead.
I'm interested in knowing, has there been any time since you have been involved in this organization, especially on a national level, that, and this could be attributed to the organization itself, where we were on any issues, or people in the organization, that you have just been thoroughly disappointed with, that this has been a low time for you in the organization, or whatever?
Yeah.
There's some. There are along with the good things, there are the bad things in any organization. You have to take them both together. Yeah, you're darn right. There's individuals in this organization that I've been very disappointed in. But again, that comes down to a personal opinion, because not everybody would share my opinion about that. But and I'm not going to name names because I think that would be inappropriate at this time. But yes, there are some individuals I've been very disappointed in their leadership ability, or some not even leadership, but just some of there's some people in this organization that I think are doing some of the things in this organization for the wrong reason. I think they're in it for themselves and not in it for the organization. And to me, that really bothers me. You'll get your award on your merit, not because I hope people don't, join for that. But, and I'll leave it at that.
One of the things that I think is really important is that people lead by example. Mm-hmm. And particularly when you are a co-chair, I think that you are propelled into another role people, you are on duty all the time. And that's just, I feel the same way about a co-chair as I feel about someone who's a judge or who's a reverend or who, you are in an exalted position, and I think you have got to be careful what type of role you put out there, because people are watching you. You have a responsibility. When you were elected to this leadership position, and it's the same way with any other exalted position. You can't just go around doing everything, particularly when you're on stage, or when you're preparing a speech, or when. I just think the co-chairship is just one of those roles that we've got to guard.
And you should carry yourself in a
respectful way.
A respectful way, right? I know some things that I've seen in the past, and I'm not going to name them, but I've been embarrassed. I have been embarrassed sometimes by some of the things that the leadership has done before. And I don't want to get down on them. I mean, I'm far from perfect myself, but there are decisions that have been made, or the way some people have conducted themselves, that I would never conduct myself that way, not only as a person of leadership, but just as an individual. I just have too much pride in myself and pride for this organization to carry on like that. I mean, I'm an NABWMT member. That means something to me. And I'm going to go out there to the gay community, to the larger straight community, and present myself, where they're not going to look at me and say, good God, I'd never want to join them. I mean, that's always on my mind. I mean, I want somebody to look at me and say, oh, that's okay.
Well, I also think that, in the larger gay community, there are already biases against interracial relationships anyway, and I just think that, you never know who's watching you and who's, and I've seen situations in which individuals picked up the wrong message about our organization from a co-chair. And it just really pissed me off, because you are the voice box of this organization. And I just think we've got to return some reverence to that position. It's just one that you can't take lightly. So.
So let me backtrack a little to some loose ends here that I would ask you about, and we'll come back to more of these sweeping questions. You both served on the board at different times. How has your experience differed in those times? Do you think the board has changed over the years as between the times you were on it? Was your experience substantially different, or is it just more of the same old thing?
I think we've had some really interesting conversations about this question, actually. Some of the experiences have been consistent, have been very similar. I think there's a direction that the board should be going in, and I think sometimes we have stalled. But I think that has to come from our leaders. I think that we have got to have leaders that are better facilitators, all the way from being more time efficient to staying on track in terms of the business, cultivating younger leadership. It's just so many things that I think our leaders should be doing that we're not doing. But that's not to blame our leaders. I know that, we've been going